Welcome to question and answer time number 4. I'm here in my mom's teaching studio in Silver Spring, Maryland. She's also a music teacher, and I'm here to answer your questions about bass playing and music in general. So here we go.
This video was actually really useful. Recently got into a conservatory to learn double bass, so better get started on those bowings. Also, Adam, what are your tips to playing an ensemble? Is there any things you should pay more attention on your playing than in other contexts?
Make sure that you can hear yourself. I think that's the big piece of advice that I can offer whenever you're trying to play in an ensemble. Now, there's 2 ways of doing this. The first way is to get your amp off the ground and at ear level. A lot of the times I might take my amplifier and place it on a stool right next to my ear. In fact, there was one instance of a bass player that I knew that actually played with the amplifier right in front of him just to make sure that he could actually hear himself. And you know, the PA is like blasting the bass through the main, so that was fine. And it looked a little strange, but to him it was like, oh yeah, I can hear myself. Well, that's fine. Anyway, the other thing is EQ. Just getting a good EQ is actually extremely important for intonation on your double bass. Now, the big thing that a lot of people like to do is to cut all of the mid-range out. And yes, I agree, mid-range can sound really annoying, especially if there's too much of it in a double bass sound. The problem with that is that our ears are tuned to the tessiture, or the range of the human voice. So we can really understand tuning from the low bass of a low human male bass all the way up to a high female soprano. And anything outside that range, that frequency spectrum, it becomes a little bit more difficult for us to hear and understand the nuances of intonation. The thing is a low human bass, the fundamental notes of their lowest pitches are around 100 to 120 hertz, but at the same time, most of the sort of overtones and the frequencies that are most accentuated are at twice that, so about 240 hertz. And that is around the low mid-range. If you look on the EQ curves of most amplifiers, 240 to like 450 is like low mid-range. And that's the area that you actually kind of need to boost in order to really understand the intonation on a double bass. So even, if you're just playing normally and you're just trying to get a good sound out of a double bass, you want to like cut that because it sounds bad. But if you want to understand your intonation and really get it in there, that's where you need to boost it, or at least have some of it in there. Yet let the front of house guy deal with the sound that's reaching the audience, but you yourself need to get that mid-range, especially the lower mid-range, in order to really understand what the intonation is. So those 2 things, making sure that you can hear yourself through EQ and also getting the amplifier in your ear, are very important for playing in an ensemble.
Nice video again. What's the bass in the background? Looks like it has a huge scale length.
That bass is an Ibanez BTB Prestige Model 5-string. It's a little bit older of a Prestige model, and I love the bass. But yes, it is a little bit longer of a scale length, 35 inches, so it's a little bit longer. But in that video, I think the reason why you're asking that is because it looks massive compared to my upright bass. And the reason why that might be is because I'm using a 50mm lens on my camera. I know very little about cameras, but I do know that whenever you have a 50mm lens, you're going to have a very shallow depth of field, which means that things in the foreground are going to be really in focus and things in the background are going to be out of focus. So it looks awesome. The problem with that is that your sense of perspective can be kind of skewed. So in that video, the camera was actually about 10 feet in front of me and that bass was about 10 feet behind me. But you kind of can't tell that. In this video, for example, you might think that the camera is like right up on me. No, it's in fact 6 feet in front of me, as you can see here. So yeah, 50mm lenses can look really cool, and the reason why I got one is because somebody said, hey, if you're a vlogger, you should get a 50mm lens.
Are you a musician or a scientist?
I know that question was meant rhetorically, but thank you for asking it because it's something that I think about all the time. You sort of think about how a lot of great scientists sometimes were musicians too, like Einstein was a fantastic violinist. I also think about how Pythagoras of like the Pythagorean theorem, the Greek guy, always did all these experiments with taking simple mathematical relationships and ratios and applying it to musical tones and intervals. So the most basic one is the interval of like a perfect fifth. He took a string that was like, let's say 3 feet long. And then took a string that was 2 feet long and strung them both at the same time, and it created a perfect fifth because a perfect fifth has the ratio of 3 to 2. And he created a scale using these simple ratios, and there were 7 notes in this scale. And interestingly, to him, those 7 notes corresponded to the relationships of the 7 planets that were known at the time and their relationship to Earth. And basically, he thought of this thing called the music of the spheres, which was this sort of celestial understanding of math and music and how they were both related in the universe at large. Yes, we now know that that's not true. There are, in fact, 8 planets, 9 planets when I was a kid. But yeah, that sort of understanding of the relationship of music and math and the world around us, something I think about a lot. A YouTube channel you should definitely check out if you're at all interested in any of this is Vihart. She has a video, I think it's about a half hour long, about 12-tone scale and math, and I don't know, it's like one of the most mind-blowing, mind-opening things I've ever seen. Check that channel out, it's awesome.
Does the lick have a name?
Why, yes, it does have a name. In fact, it's called The Lick. And it came about because a guy decided to splice a bunch of different videos of people playing this particular lick, different improvisers, different composers from different styles over like the past 50 years or so, and post them on YouTube. There's actually several videos of these splices. They're hilarious. And it became like this gigantic in-joke in the jazz community. A friend of mine decided to write a piece of music that was nothing but the lick over and over and over again in different transpositions. Yeah, and like with all in-jokes, it became unfunny pretty quickly, but that's like the big funny thing to do. And of course, I'll do that all the time. Like, you know, I'll be improvising. See what I did there? Yeah. So yeah, that's what it is.
What kind of pickup is on your P bass and why did you get it?
Those are DiMarzio split P pickups, and I got them for two reasons. The first reason is they look pretty cool. That sort of like the white pickup against the white pickguard. I don't know, something about that looks pretty cool. A lot of people ask about them. The other reason is that they're voiced a little bit differently than typical aftermarket P-bass pickups. Typically, those sort of pickups, like the sound that a lot of people go for is like that vintage, fat, full, thumpy sort of sound. That's not what it sounds like, but to me, it can sound a little bit farty. I like these split P pickups because they're voiced a little bit more modern, I guess. They have extremely high output and they grab every single detail of your playing, which is awesome.
A general framework from which to play. You've been shedding grammar, haven't you?
So with a lot of these videos, I'm actually reading off of a script that I write, and I do that because I like to, you know, get language really tight and like get my points, like, you know, edit it and make sure that it's like exactly what I want to say in what order. But the thing, sort of the side effect of that is that a lot of times I'll be using very formal grammar and I kind of forget to edit it so it's a little bit more conversational, like a YouTube channel. So when I say something like a general framework from which to play, yes, it's more formal English, but you know, it doesn't sound like I'm just talking to the camera, which I suppose I should be doing. I definitely just talk to the camera for these question and answer videos, as you can probably tell.
Hey Adam, continuing to love the videos. I was wondering if you could talk about any effects that you use or are a fan of, and why.
So I think it's pretty essential, at least for me as a bass player, to own an octave pedal. And what an octave pedal does is it takes whatever note that you're playing and plays it an octave lower. And so this is awesome for two reasons. The first reason is, well, you get all these extra notes. You could use a 5-string for this, but it might be nice if you have a 4-string to be able to play low D or low C or low B or even lower than that, because a lot of octave pedals might track down to low A, like the 5th fret on the E string. Now the problem is it kind of doesn't go too much further than that. It ends up sounding kind of farty on older pedals. They might not track so hot. But the other reason why we like octave pedals is because you are able to affect the sound of a synth bass using an octave effect. Like that use of English grammar? Yeah, spent some time thinking about that. So the big thing with like the past 10 years is to use an octave pedal kind of get that synth bass sound. With like a lot of pop songs, a lot of rock songs, like you really want to have a little bit different of a sound than when you have a normal bass, like the bass guitar sound. Now, synth pedals generally they don't have the same sort of response as an octave pedal. Octave pedals, it still feels like you're playing bass. It doesn't feel like this weird sort of thing that doesn't really respond to your playing. So a lot of people end up going with things like the Boss OC2, which is what I have, the analog version of Boss's current OC3 pedal. Other people like MXR's Bass Octave Deluxe. They also like the Aguilar Optimizer, the EBS Octabass. Those are all great pedals. So yeah, get an octave pedal. I end up using an octave pedal on pretty much every gig that I have, unless it's like straight ahead jazz or musical theater. And even still for like contemporary musical theater, I'll definitely bring an octave pedal. So yeah, octave pedal, get one.
Adam, thanks a lot for videos you are doing. I'm not sure if this is a correct question, but how do you get the sound presented on 130 in this video? I'll be thankful from deep of my heart if you can tell me that. But thank you anyway. Good luck.
So piggybacking on the octave pedal, a lot of people in the past 10 years have also been trying a sort of an effects chain order. Octave pedal, fuzz, filter. And the rationale behind this is it's sort of kind of mimicking how a synthesizer works. So with the octave pedal, you're sort of creating a sine wave sound. It's not really a sine wave, but it's sort of like your basic building block, your basic oscillator. When you have the fuzz on it, it's sort of like turning that sine wave into like a square wave or maybe a saw wave, depends. And then once you have that fuzz, then you put a filter after it, and that filter controls the cutoff of the high end. And when you open and close the filter, it creates that wah, wah, wah sort of sound, which, is everybody likes, or at least everybody in 2012 liked. Now it's a little bit passé to like the dubstep wah, wah, but I like it, whatever, I'm old. Anyway, so that effect that I was using in that video was basically that. I was using Guitar Rig's version of an octave pedal, a fuzz, and a filter, but the concept applies for anything. This has been question and answer time number 4. Please leave questions because these are really fun. I have a great time answering questions, and you guys have some awesome questions, and it's really cool. Thank you for watching so much. This has been so much fun for me to putting together these videos and sort of sharing my viewpoint on music in the world. It's really exciting. So please stay tuned for more.